All right, let's dive into one of the most influential books ever put together, the Bible. Now, it's a huge, kind of intimidating collection of writings, right? But what if I told you it's all actually telling one single epic story? That's the thread we're going to pull on today. See, the source material doesn't present this as just a random library of books. It's framed as one unified drama. We're talking a story that stretches across thousands of years, following one main plot that tries to explain, well, everything. Our purpose, our biggest problem, and the ultimate fix. So what is that main plot? How do all these different characters, these ancient laws, and these fallen kingdoms actually connect? We're going to follow that thread and see how it ties the first words in Genesis all the way to the final vision in Revelation. Every story has to start somewhere, and this one begins, as you'd probably guess, at the very beginning. It sets the stage with a perfect world and then introduces the one central conflict that's going to drive the entire rest of the narrative. So in the opening pages, we're told that everything starts out in a state of, well, perfect harmony. God creates the world, and the word used over and over is good. And at the very top of this creation are the first humans, Adam and Eve, living in this perfect, face-to-face relationship with their creator. But, and there's always a but, isn't there? This perfect setup is shattered. God gives one rule, they break it, and in that single moment of disobedience, everything changes. That perfect relationship is broken, harmony is replaced with struggle, innocence with shame, and connection with separation. This is it. This is the core problem that the rest of the book is going to try to solve. But the story doesn't just stop at the problem. No way. Right away, a plan is put into motion to fix that broken relationship. And as this plan unfolds over centuries, a really clear pattern starts to show up. The whole rescue plan is built on a promise, a covenant really, that God makes with a man named Abraham. He basically says, through you and your family, I'm going to work to bring blessing and restoration back to everyone. This promise becomes the North Star for like the next 1,000 years of the story. And you see that promise playing out over generations. Abraham's family grows into the nation of Israel. They get rescued from slavery in Egypt by Moses, they're led into a new homeland by Joshua, and they even set up their own kingdom under King David. Each step feels like it's getting closer to fulfilling that big promise. But here's that pattern I mentioned, and it's a frustrating one. The people turn away from God, things get really bad, they cry out for help, and God sends a hero, a judge, or a king to rescue them. But as soon as things are good again, the cycle just starts right back over. It becomes painfully obvious that a temporary human leader just isn't a permanent solution. So, as the cycle of failure just grinds on and on, the story starts pointing to something else, something in the future. It begins to introduce this idea of a final solution that could break the cycle once and for all. I mean, even the glory days under kings like David and Solomon fall apart. The kingdom splits in two, and a long line of mostly terrible kings leads the people further and further away from God. It proves that even the best human systems are doomed to fail, and the result is pretty brutal. They're conquered by empires and dragged away from their home into exile. Now, during all this decline, these figures called prophets show up. They're basically God's spokespeople, warning everyone about what's coming. But they also deliver this incredible message of hope. They talk about a future king, a perfect one, and a totally new kind of promise, one that wouldn't just be a set of rules, but would actually change people from the inside. And this promised hero finally gets a name, the Messiah. It literally means the anointed one. The entire story up to this point, the brokenness in the garden, the promise to Abraham, that endless cycle of failure, the words of the prophets, it's all been building anticipation for this one person. So this sets the stage for the story's big turning point. Every human attempt to fix the problem has failed. The question that's just hanging in the air is, what on earth is this final divine solution actually going to look like? And with that, we crash into the second major part of the story, the New Testament. And here, the narrative makes a bold claim that the long-awaited solution has finally arrived, and in a way, nobody saw coming. The story zeroes in on the birth of a man named Jesus of Nazareth, and from the very first moment, with an angel's announcement, he's identified as the Messiah. But listen closely to the mission. It's not to save them from their political enemies, but to save them from their sins. That's the root cause of the whole separation problem to begin with. His life, as it's told, is just completely different.
He talks about a kingdom that isn't about power or land. He performs miracles that seem to undo the effects of that original brokenness, and he makes the unbelievable claim that he is the Son of God, the only way to fix what went wrong back in the garden.
Now you have to understand, almost everyone at the time was expecting the Messiah to be a military hero. They wanted someone who would kick out the Roman army and make Israel a superpower again. But the story takes a sharp, and for many, a very disappointing turn.
Instead of raising an army, Jesus allows himself to be arrested and publicly executed. And at the moment of his death, he doesn't call for a revenge. He asks for forgiveness for the very people killing him, showing what his mission was really all about.
So, in this story, the final battle isn't against an empire. It's against the real enemies, sin and death themselves, the things that caused that separation from God in the first place. His death is portrayed as the ultimate sacrifice that pays for all of humanity's rebellion. And then you get the ultimate climax. The story makes its most incredible claim. 3 days after he was killed and buried, Jesus came back to life. The resurrection is presented as the final proof, God's exclamation point, that his sacrifice was a total victory over death itself.
The resurrection, though, isn't really an ending. It's the beginning of the story's final act. This one event completely rewrites the rules of the relationship between God and humanity, and it kicks off a whole new chapter for the world.
Think about it. This one event turns a small group of Jesus' terrified followers into fearless messengers. They start spreading the word that the way back to God, the path to healing that relationship broken in Eden, is now wide open to anyone, anywhere who puts their trust in what Jesus did.
So there you have it, the whole arc, from a perfect garden to a broken world, through a promise, a cycle of failure, and prophecies, all leading to a cross and an empty tomb. The Bible presents itself not as a collection of books, but as the one story of everything. And that leaves us with a pretty big question. What is it about this single story that has given it such lasting power for thousands of years?